Say, did you know that history is all around us? Start with your locale, the town and the state. I grew up in a little town in Virginia called Radford. Well, there are two pieces of historical connection. One, the name of the town, Radford, was named for a family who came there and settled early on. Virginia was named for Elizabeth the Virgin Queen, and its name came from the colonial era. Why do we call Savannah, the town where I live now, Savannah? Well, when Oglethorpe came, he thought of the grassland, and that area was all grass then. It was treeless, so he called it Savannah, and it later became part of the colony of Georgia, named for King George. So your town and state are the beginning of your historical studies. When I lived in New York City, I worked with a group of children half a block from Amsterdam Avenue. Why was it Amsterdam? Because it used to be New Amsterdam, changed later to New York. What about Wall Street? That was the wall that surrounded the Dutch fort. So look for examples of history in your own community. The forts, the museums, the parks, historical markers, archaeological digs, all of those places can sow the seeds of history in the child's fertile mind. I was very fortunate in my childhood to have both sets of grandparents, and one set of grandparents was descended from the Peter Jones family. Peter Jones founded Petersburg in the colonial era, and then the Painter family came from Germany, and they were derived from the Indian princess Pocahontas and the Englishman John Rolfe. So I was part of history already, even as a child, and that was nurtured throughout my education. I remember in 7th grade, our teacher said, let's have a history exhibit. Let's make a mini museum. So everybody in the class brought things from their family or their grandparents, things that they had collected that were from a bygone age. And we had paintings of John Fremont, the California explorer. I remember that's one that I did in tempera painting. And it was still in the cafeteria 15 years after I left that elementary school. So these experiences are so important, so vital to helping a child become interested and excited about history. Remember, history's all around us. The chart of the basic needs and tendencies is the very foundation of the history program in elementary, and as such, it needs to be displayed permanently for easy reference by the children. This chart shows the children how in any human society at any time, past or present, the people are involved in satisfying their physical needs, exercising their mental faculties, and creating a spiritual territory. Now, the physical needs are obvious: food, clothing, housing, defense, transport. The mental faculties: exploration, classification, communication, measurement. And the spiritual domain, we're using here the 4 Greek words for love: ego, meaning self-worth; philia, meaning brotherly and sisterly love; eros, meaning artistic creation and playfulness; and agape, meaning appreciation for the universe. Now, of course, we have to help the children understand all of this language. And the best way I found to do that was to have each child prepare his or her own personal chart. That means they're given a large piece of paper and they draw the 13 circles, and then they picture themselves exercising their physical needs, exercising their mental faculties, and creating love in their lives. So when they look at this chart, it provides a key which really becomes internal by, say, the age of 10 or 11, so that whenever they go to research a culture, at any time or place, they are able to approach it in an orderly fashion. The physical, mental, and spiritual domains are present everywhere.
Thank you. Come on.
Here we see the teacher and the child taking out a panel of the American history timeline. The teacher draws upon the interests of the child, and together they choose 3 images. The child reads the captions, which gives starter information for research, which can be conducted using books in the classroom or the local library. And this research may culminate in a project for presentation to other members of the class.
Today we're going to talk about the American history timeline. In this section, it is the Reform and Reconstruction time period. It's from 1861, as you'll see up there, to 1914. So what on this timeline interests you? What do you see on here?
The monitor seems really cool. So does George Washington Carver and the 48 states.
All right, well, we have these captions here for all 3 of those. And then we have the Monitor and the Merrimack. Would you like to read the first sentence just to get you started on that one?
The Monitor and the Merrimack fought a famous naval battle in the American Civil War. These 2 ships were called ironclads because they were covered with iron.
And your next one was George Washington Carver.
George Washington Carver was a scientist, researcher, and teacher. He was born to enslaved parents in a small town in Missouri. When he was just a baby, he and his mother were stolen.
And then the last one you said was 48 states.
By this time, the United States consisted of 48 states. From 13 states in 1776, the Union had grown to span the entire North American continent and stretch from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico.
Well, those 3 captions can get you started on your research. You can read more about them, and then if you find out you want to learn even more about them, you can refer to the books on the shelf, or we could even go to the library and get some more information. But before I leave you to work on your own, is there any other thing that you have questions about the timeline?
What does the red stand for?
The red is actually the time period of war. So the artist who created these wanted to show that that was a time when it was not a happy time. It was during a war, and that war was actually longer than this war. This was just a very short Spanish-American war. So I'll leave you, and you can do your research on your own, and then I'll check back with you about doing a project to present to the class.